Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy. You can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Today's episode is sponsored by Inside Tracker and supported by Orgain and Practice Better. Stay tuned to hear more about these amazing companies that I'm partnered with. But for now, let's get to the conversation. Hello, fans. It's Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, the host of the podcast. I'm here with a guest that I'm so excited to talk to today, Sarah Slattery. Sarah grew up in Phoenix, Arizona with her parents, Terry, Helen Gorton, and her sister, Lindsay, which is a great name for a sister. Sarah was a 10-time Arizona state champion in cross country and track and field and was the U.S. junior champion in the 3K and the junior Pan American champion in 1999. She also made the junior world cross country championships that same year. She went on to compete at the University of Colorado. At Colorado, she was a 10-time All-American and a 4-time NCAA champion, winning the 2003 indoor 5,000 meter run and the 2005 outdoor 10,000 meter run. And she was a part of 2 NCAA cross-country championships teams in 2000 and 2005. Sarah was the CU record holder in the indoor mile at 4 minutes, 40.35 seconds, the indoor 3,000 in 9 minutes, 7.16 seconds, and the outdoor 5,000 meter at 15 minutes, 24.97 seconds. So impressive. Sarah helped CU to its first national championship in the women's cross country in 2000 as a freshman, and she led CU to its second crown as a senior in 2004. She was inducted to the CU Athlete Hall of Fame in 2016. Sarah went on to have a successful professional career. In 2006, she won the Boulder and is the last American woman to win that race. In 2007, she was the Pan American Games champion in the 10K and was the alternate for the Olympic team in the 5K in 2008. She has personal records of 4:32 for the mile, 8:57 for the 3K, 15:08 for the 5K, 31:57 for the 10K. She's also a 2013 World Elliptigo champion. In 2015, she became the head men's and women's cross-country coach for Grand Canyon University and is one of the few women in the NCAA coaching both men's and women's team at that time. She and her husband, Steve, also a former professional runner, live in Arizona with their 2 children, Stephen and Callie. Sarah, that was quite the impressive bio. Thank you so much for being willing to come on the podcast and have this conversation.
Yeah, that was a long list, but I appreciate you doing that. And I always laugh at or get a kick out of the World Elliptigo champion because most people are like, what the heck is that? But
I did have to look it up. Yeah. So I'm sure maybe some other people will too.
Yeah. I think a lot of the runners will know what it is, but most like the average person is not going to know what an elliptigo is. And runners are really good at it because they're very good at endurance things. But yes, that was probably one of the hardest things I've done.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it was like the World Championships they hold every year is in San Diego, and it's a 12-mile climb up Palomar Mountain. And going into it, I was good friends with the head of sales, Bryce. And he was like, oh, you'll be great at it. You're like, I just had a baby. I was like,
yeah,
I think 6 months postpartum. And I was like, oh, you'll be fine. Like you do endurance stuff all the time. It's just the same thing. But like, so he's like, it's only 12 miles. And I was like, oh, that won't be bad. Like it's so much faster on the elliptigo. And I was like, so what's the winning time? And he was like, oh, or what's the record? And he was like, an hour 40 for 12 miles. And I was like, that's like, how steep is this mountain? And it was
Right?
very steep. Yes. So it was very tough. And I'm not like a hill climber. So yeah. Anyway, that was a tangent.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And our non-endurance listeners are going to think hour 40 for 12 miles. Like what sounds like they're thinking something different, right? They're thinking that sounds really, really fast. And you're thinking that's a really steep hill. So, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think to start this conversation, we have so many things that we can talk about today, but kind of going over your bio and speaking specifically to your running career, because we kind of highlighted your records and your times and championships and things like that. I mean, you really found success kind of in, I guess, kind of all the phases or stages that you can, where you really did find success in high school, being a state champion. You were also very successful at Colorado, and then also getting to the pro level and making it as an alternate to the Olympics, you know, kind of all three, the high school, collegiate, and post-collegiate professional level, really amazing, notable, you know, performances. So I just thought we could start with kind of your passion for running. Did it start in high school? And at what point in time did you know or think this could be, I can keep going with this. This can become a career for me?
Yeah. Well, I was kind of a late, I didn't start running until late into my sporting life. I started out playing a lot of different sports. I played soccer. Most of them were co-ed because I grew up in the 80s. So there weren't a lot of like just girls sports. So like I did t-ball and soccer were both co-ed. And then I played softball and basketball was co-ed too. And then I swam every summer. Like growing up in Arizona, like swimming is such, I think it's probably one of the best sports you can be involved in because it's so hot. So yeah, I started out in rec swimming and had some early success and really loved it. And around age 8 or 9, around 8 or 9, I asked my parent, I really wanted to swim year round. So I started club swimming and, just loved it. I thought that, and I continued swimming through high school. And I thought that was where, like, I thought I wanted to be an Olympian. My big dream was to swim at the University of Michigan. And, so I really thought that was what was going to take me. That's where I was going to go in sports. And I did run. I started running. A bunch of my friends that were swimmers from school were running middle school track and cross country. And so I found out, like, just like most kids in PE and like the presidential fitness test, and they'd always do the mile run. Like I remember I ran like 540 or something like that in the mile in PE class and beat all the boys and all the girls and most of the boys. And I think there was one kid that beat me. And so I knew I was really good at it, but I still considered myself a swimmer. And so I did cross country and I won the middle school championships, but it was like a 6-week program. And then I went back to swimming. And so then in high school, I actually didn't run cross country my freshman year. I swam because it was in the same season. Oh. And so I swam that season. And I think I finished top 8 in 2 events and made the finals. And that was good as a freshman, really good as a freshman. And the cross country coach kept asking me to come out, but I didn't want to. And then finally, like, some of my friends were like, just do track, but you can do it while you're doing swimming. Cause like track is in the spring and swimming's club at that point. So I had to our club coach really didn't want you swimming or running or like doing other sports. So I kind of did it behind his back, and I ended up second in the state in 800 mile and 2 mile my freshman year, and our 4x8 won. And so I was like, I'm not really putting a lot of time into this, and I'm significantly better than I am at something I'm really trying hard at. So my dad had like this talk with me, and he's like, you really should put more time, maybe like really pursue this because you could be really good at it. So then I ended up running cross country that next fall and made the national championships, the Foot Locker national championships my first year, and kind of continued to swim in the off seasons and stuff, but really pursue running after that.
Yeah, it's great. And, you know, I think I've heard you speak about this elsewhere about kind of the importance of young athletes to be willing to do other sports. And, you know, your love for running obviously did eventually take off and your success there. But, you know, to kind of be open to doing other sports, whether it be for our physical development or our mental development. I think there's a lot of good things to be said for that. And I think, you're a testament of that yourself, of being, doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think it's huge. And we found that in our book too, like even the research behind a lot of that, being not one dimensional early on and like trying multiple sports and playing multiple sports and how it can have like a huge effect on your success in the future in other sports. So most of the 90% of the girls that were in our book played multiple sports early on and didn't specialize until high school. And so that was really interesting. And so it's backing up what we thought, but also like, and it's, like these are the women that we were interviewing are some of the top, the top runners in like women's history. And so to see that was really awesome because you can see that it should be fun early on. You should try a lot of things. You don't know what you're good at until you try it. And those other sports can go on to help you in what you pursue in the future. And so give you different skills. And Dr. Adam Tinfordi, who did his sports medicine undergrad at Stanford University, he actually ran there as well, and was a high level distance runner in high school and college and ran professionally as well. He did like an 8-year stress fracture study and found that athletes that played ball sports before, this was a study they did it at US Nationals with the top athletes, that they found that those athletes that played ball sports before high school were 50% less likely to have a stress fracture later on in their career. So,
wow.
Just
pretty significant.
Yeah, that was a huge stat. So and then to see it play out in some of the women that we see like now that were like, not that they didn't ever get injured, but they're less like, they're able to like have long careers and navigate through those things and be able to have like healthier careers long term.
Well, and I think another thing that makes sense just when we talk about the history of women's sports in general, right? Like, as you were even mentioning, growing up in the 80s, you were on co-ed teams because there weren't even enough girls participating at that time due to Title IX really being rather new still. And so I think we saw girls sports, improve 80s, 90s. And I think we had this time period probably in the 2000s and early 2010s where it became normal for now girls to be athletes, which is wonderful. But then that specialization and focus and maybe intensity maybe started at a super young age. And we're kind of now realizing here in 2020, like, wait a second, maybe we need to go back to doing the ball sports, doing 3 sports all year long instead of just 1. And so we're kind of like coming back to where we were 30 years ago.
Yeah. And it's really hard, like not to specialize. Like my kids are 7 and 9 and they're just getting into sports more seriously. And so even now, like we have my son's playing football and swimming right now. My daughter's swimming and playing soccer. And a lot of it is club and like they want a huge commitment from you. And so it's hard not to, like, with time commitments and having a job, like balancing all those things with parents. It's like hard to not like get solely focused on one thing. So I'm trying to live up to what I'm preaching too, because it's really hard to balance sometimes.
There's those pressures. And then I'm sure, of course, as a parent, like you don't want to deprive them the opportunity of exceeding or excelling in something if they want to go down that path or if they're showing that potential. So yeah, there's a finesse to this and a balance. And, I guess every situation will be different. And I know even I think by 9 years old, I was doing gymnastics and every sport's different too, right? But gymnastics is a sport that I was in the gym at least 4 days a week by 9 years old and with 4-hour sessions, so it's like, yeah, that was pretty intense. But keeping the fun in it is important. It was fun for me, at least during that time too. And so as you went from swimming, you're like, all right, I'm actually really good at running, kind of went that path, get to college and then pro running. And, one question that I love to ask when I have an athlete like such as yourself on the podcast is just I'd love to know kind of your journey with nutrition. At what point in time, if ever, did nutrition come on your radar of something that helped you as an athlete or affected you as an athlete?
I think early on, like with swimming, I started realizing how much fueling was important. I remember doing my first prelim final meet, and I probably swam 10 events in the meet that weekend. And I was like I did IM and distance free and backstroke. And so I was doing longer events. And I remember after it was either 200 or 400 IM in the final, I came out of the pool and just like almost passed out. And that's when my dad was like, we got like, this was like the beginning of power bars and the beginning of like, like nutritional shakes and things like that. And so my dad like took me, I think we went to GNC or something, and we got like Tiger's milk bars and power bars for in between races. And he was making me drink like I don't even know what we got, like a protein shake or something in the morning to just get extra calories in so that I was having enough fuel during the competitions and not like feeling like I'm going to pass out at the end of the races. So learning, like I never was like concerned about it was more getting enough in. And then I was assuming I could eat anything. Like I could literally eat like 20 minutes right before I swam and be fine.
And you were good to go.
But when I remember in middle school, I was at the middle school track championships, and my mom had brought a bunch of sliced oranges and some other things. And I was eating them right before my race. And it was like before the 800 mile. And I get done with my race and I immediately go behind the bleachers and I just like start throwing up. And I realized like you can't eat the same things. Like your stomach can't handle the same running as it can swimming. And so I had to learn how like timing and what things like your body could handle, like my body could handle digesting right before like a harder run, because it's just harder on your system than swimming is. So
I think a little more jostling around of the intestines.
Yes. So I think I definitely like went through some underfueling, like, and I lost my period in high school.
Oh, you did?
And so I had my menstrual cycle early. Like, I think that was like a good thing too. Like with swimming is like, it didn't impede like my growth. Like as I was doing, like the fueling was good. Like I didn't have any hormonal imbalances or anything. But when I first started running, I think because I wasn't able to eat the same way, I was under fueling at that time. I didn't get my period. I remember my mom not knowing. We went to a bunch of doctor's appointments and they're like, well, that sometimes the answer was like, well, that happens with distance running sometimes, or the stress. And as long as like everything looks okay, she's fine. And then I went to a junior camp and at the Olympic Training Center. Like I qualified for this training camp and they brought in a bunch of the best women's just like distance runners at the time. And they had some of the top college coaches that were like counseling the camp and some physiologists. And they were suggesting at the time was like to put girls on birth control. And so that like, I remember feeling very weird about going on it because like I hadn't, like I'd never had sex before and I'm going on birth control. I'm asking my parents for this. And like, I grew up Catholic. And so it was like
in the name of the medication, which I think is, like, this is for birth control. This is not for
like hormonal health or like whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So I remember my like feeling very odd that I'm taking that. But then like I continue to take that through college, but like I just really regret, like I mean at the time that that was like the protocol, but like it would have been better to address why this is not happening, like why, like it was an underfueling issue. And then I started to have some injuries in college, and I think a lot of that, or like I had like my immune system was always suppressed, I felt like, and it was probably due to not getting enough calories in or not having enough fuel for what I was trying to perform. And so I feel if I would have addressed that earlier, I probably wouldn't have had some of those issues that I had in college later on. And so around my junior year, I went off of it. And like I had a doctor that I would see, Dr. Dave Martin, and he really suggested, he's like, it's not a long-term solution to what's going on. And let's look at fueling and how we can get more calories in and make you healthier overall. So I was really happy that I had his advice and was able to address that later, but I wish I would have addressed it earlier on.
Yeah. But no, that's great that you did have people guiding you and addressing the fueling piece, in college. So that was really, really helpful. But yeah, one thing I was going to say is, that's a little bit of my story too. And a lot of people currently and definitely of the past, 10, 20 years where like birth control was just the answer for everything. And I was on birth control starting at a young age as well, prior to being sexually active, and just stayed on it. And I think back and I'm like, I don't know if I would have had a missing period. I don't know if those other little injuries that kept adding up, like, was that affected by nutrition? Was birth control masking it? And we won't know.
Yeah.
We can't go back, but we can just kind of learn now and educate others. And, and I'm not trying to shame birth control if you need it for birth control reasons. It's an option to do. But if you're a 17-year-old athlete focusing on your health and performance, then there's other ways to focus on health and performance and have healthy hormones,
Yeah. And I think a lot of even as a coach now, that approach is not there. Like, it's kind of like the last resort if we can't get things moving to try to start things going again. But now they're really working on the whole picture and figuring out if we can address this in different ways before we go to birth control.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So your nutrition journey started with power bars and Tiger bars and just how can I get extra fuel in? And then by college time, really kind of looking at it more in depth of hey, how do I really fuel my body as an athlete and make sure that my health and I've got hormone balance and things like that. Were there anything, and it's okay if there's not, but anything significant that you felt really helped you kind of transition from college to pro running as far as, learning how to fuel your body appropriately, if you had any big tips or major takeaways or anything like that?
I think it was just being more conscious of the amount that I was extending myself all the time and what I was putting back into because as a college student, it's not just the training that you're doing. I mean, you're my mileage increased double from what I was doing in high school to college. And plus I was lifting, and then the demands of school and all the other things on top of it. And you're on your own for your first time in your life, and it's a stressor. So all those stressors can cause you need to make sure you're getting enough sleep, eating well, just taking care of your body in general. So those things were really hard lessons to learn in college. And I think that's why we see so many girls have trouble during that phase, because there's so many changes going on hormonally, with your life in general,
schedule, social life.
Yes. You're leaving your parents for the first time. You're on your own. You're responsible for a lot more things. Your trainings increases. You're in a new team environment. All these things take a toll on your health. And so it's navigating those things and trying to make sure you're taking care of yourself, fueling wise, but also mental health and all the balancing the amount that's on your plate is really key. So I think, just in general, handling those things and even now, I think it's great. I think a lot of coaches didn't know how to coach women. There is women's, if you look in our book, the history of women's sports is still less, it was 2008 when women had equal events in distance running for men and women. They added the steeplechase and the marathon's only been there since 1984. So I think it's improved a lot in terms of how the coaches are approaching women's running and the needs that women have versus men. And I think we're addressing things a lot differently than we did back when I was there. We had, I remember going to Foot Locker for the first time and feeling coming in as a swimmer. I was one of the smallest girls, smallest swimmers. And I felt that was a disadvantage to me. I felt I wasn't improving as much because I was always the tallest and strongest. And then people were catching up to me. I had a growth spurt. I think fifth grade, I was fourth and fifth grade. I was always or throughout school, I was always like the tallest in my class, boys and girls. And so I felt that was a disadvantage. And then when I went to running, I felt like I was one of the bigger girls. And like, I was like, is this not like helping? Like, do I need to be smaller to be good at what I want to do? And so you come to realize that in distance running, there are all shapes and sizes, that fueling is important to perform to where you want to get to. And you need to make sure you're fueling to perform and not to like change the body that you have, because each body can service each person differently. And like there are so many shapes and sizes in our distance running, and it's more about what you're putting in and making sure you're taking care of yourself long term.
Yeah.
And I also feel like there's so many things that you can address. Like that's one thing that you need to address to be good as a distance runner. But you also, there's sleep, there's stress, there's your training, there's environmental factors outside of like what you're doing running wise too, that affect how you are. So it's making sure you have like all those things in check, and not just one is going to make you the better runner.
And, you know, as a dietitian myself and a sports dietitian, like, I feel like I'm always telling my clients this. I'm like, okay, you like, yes, nutrition matters. Like, yes, I care. I'm your dietitian, but like, it's not everything. It's not. And like, you know, so when one client is coming to mind is really struggling to get back to a level of performance that she knows she's capable of, but like she's not sleeping and she had the major life change. And I'm like, we can't keep blaming nutrition for this. And, you know, honestly, what I'm doing for her is just helping her see that her nutrition is good. Keep trusting in your nutrition. Your nutrition is good. We've been working on that, but like, we need to address the sleep. We need to address, or whether it's me or just like her, I need to support her in addressing all these other areas that affect your performance as well. And, you know, obviously you have that experience too of at Grand Canyon University, you were coaching collegiate athletes and both the men and the women. And, you know, men have their struggles as well and things that they need to focus on, but sometimes there are differences, like maybe, you know, and of course everybody, you know, there's crossover, but I think that girls and women can get trapped in the body size and aesthetics or pressures to look a certain way that can certainly conflict with actually their goals when it comes to performance and training and being an athlete. And so I think as a coach, like balancing that was probably so important in guiding them to really stay focused on what are the important things to focus on here. Hey fans, I hope you are enjoying this conversation, but an important part of it is a word from our awesome sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Inside Tracker. Thanks to Inside Tracker, I've been able to catch iron deficiency and anemia on 2 different occasions in the past few years. And with this, I was able to kickstart my recovery to better fueling and workouts without having to coordinate doctor's appointments or wait around for my lab results. With Inside Tracker, I'm able to get my blood drawn whenever I want to and see everything that I want to. Personally, I get the Ultimate Plan a couple times a year to check up on my blood biomarkers and nutritional status. And thanks to Inside Tracker, I'm able to implement science-based nutrition and lifestyle recommendations immediately after results come in with their user-friendly online platform and personalized action plan. This is why I've been able to reverse iron deficiency so quickly, because my health is in my own hands when I'm using Inside Tracker. Created by leading scientists in aging, genetics, and biometrics, Inside Tracker analyzes your blood, DNA, and fitness tracking data to identify where you're optimized and where you're not. You'll get a daily action plan with personalized guidance on the right exercise, nutrition, and supplementation for your body. And when you connect Inside Tracker with your Fitbit or Garmin, you'll also unlock real-time recovery pro tips after you complete your workout. It's like having your own personal trainer and nutritionist in your pocket. For a limited time, you can get 20% off the entire Inside Tracker store by heading to insidetracker.com/riseup. There's a lot more that it can show you and that you can do with it besides just your iron. That's just my personal experiences. So again, head to insidetracker.com/riseup. That's RISEUP for 20% off. Back to the show.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that with the men and the women, but like I had like a handful of guys come with me with this, like same issues. Yeah. I think it's harder, honestly, for the men because they don't have those biomarkers like we do with our period and things like that to let us know things are off, or you're not getting enough calories, or we need to address this. They they do have some where they're tired or they're injured or things like that will come up. But we have like a very distinct biomarker that does that for us as women. So we're lucky, but I think it's also stigmatized because they just assume that guys don't deal with these things. And and I think one of the biggest eye-opening things for me as a coach, my first year coaching, was I really pushed hard to have blood testing done for both men and women, so we could look at iron levels and vitamin D levels and do a normal CBC panel twice. Like we were going to do it twice a year, just so we could have a baseline. And if we had anything off, we would test that individual more often. So we did that right away, and I got it only approved for the women. And so I was like, at the time, I was like, okay, fine, we'll just do the women. Then it came in at half the cost of what we had anticipated it. So we did both men and women.
Good.
When we got the first round back, I had more red flags on the men than I did the women.
The men's side.
And I think a lot of times the men or the women actually like make a point to take care of themselves, like with nutrition and want to address those things.
I think women are naturally a little more health oriented.
Yes. And so,
right. Yeah.
So the men, so we had, I was really happy that we were able to do both because we had a lot of issues on the men's side.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have imagined that too. In my work as a sports dietitian for collegiate teams, it's like the iron deficiency is pretty common in male distance runners, among other things too. But it is interesting, I think, how girls and women, again, I am stereotyping here, so I know there's outliers, but like, I think that girls and women generally have more an initiative to care about health or, focus on food or nutrition a little bit. It's in sometimes good ways and sometimes not so good ways. But because of that, they might be proactive in taking a multi, taking an iron supplement, putting spinach in their smoothie and where like guys are not doing that as much. And maybe there's issues there too. And I think another thing too about maybe some differences is like, okay, girls and women might face certain pressures as a young athlete or collegiate athlete and about their body size and shape, but we also have lots of resources for that if they're open to it, if they're willing to talk about it, read books about it, go to their coach, we have a lot of resources. Whereas I actually struggle sometimes. I actually get male athletes coming to me because they're hearing me talking about fueling or, issues with body size or red S. And they're like, do you only work with female athletes? And I'm like, man, I really am only working with female athletes right now because they don't have that support quite as much. So I think more girls might struggle. And yet the good news is that we have support, whereas the guys don't see the support quite as much, which is a struggle for them.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I just finished reading this book. It's called The Crisis of Boys. And this is a little off topic, but it's talking about with the women's movement and Title IX and all of those things, how now the boys are falling behind in so many categories. And it's kind of like in school and testing and getting into colleges, and they're more likely to go back and live with their parents, and how we need to like shift it and make sure that we're servicing both sides equally now, because we're finally catching the women up, and it's to a point now where they're ahead of the boys. And so now we need to like make that equal and have these conversations so that our roles have shifted to on what we generally determine as male roles and female roles for certain things, and making just allowing those things so that guys and girls don't feel left out of the picture in a lot of things. So it opened my eyes to a lot.
I'm with you on that. I'm actually very aware of that book. And, you have a son, I have a son, and it's amazing because we want to be here and be like, go women, girls rule. But it's like, wait, boys rule too. Like boys are awesome too. And we want to be able to lift both of us up, but it is.
Well, and even if you have a daughter, you want your daughter to be married to someone or their future spouse, like male or female, to be like, just well supported and socially have the tools to be able to be successful long term. And so, I think it was a really good book. Like I really enjoyed hearing that part and just like how we approach things with both our daughters and our sons.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as we're on the topic of you having children and things like that, I did want to touch on the fact that you and your husband, started building your family while you were running at a high level. And so I just for me personally, I'm nowhere near your level of running. I'm recreational, but I have a son who's just 11 months old and I'm also pregnant again currently. So it's been,
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm in that journey. And what I found, everybody's, I think, pregnancy and journey with motherhood is different, but it was really interesting. I postpartum took a long time to recover. I was not back to running in 3 months, at all. And yet when I did get back to running, I felt amazing. I was shocked. And even now I'm still going out on tempo runs. And I'm like, what is this? I feel like I'm faster after having a baby here. And you even saw that. Well, I won't speak for you, but you did have a 10K race where you were so close to PRing from a PR from 10 years prior. And it was after having kids. And I just I don't know, I just wanted to chat with you kind of about your experience of having kids while still running at a high level. I mean, I'm sure there were lots of challenges, lots of changes, and kind of what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, I think things have changed so much now, where women are supported so much, in terms of on the professional level, Alicia Montano, thanks to her and a few Kara Goucher and Allison Felix, who came when Lindsay Krause wrote that article on women's journey, professional pregnancies and how there's not support to be able to get back into things a lot of the contracts. So when we decided to have a family, my husband was retiring from competing and I had been competing for close to 10 years 8 years. And it wasn't something that we really wanted to put off any longer. I was 32 at the time and we wanted to have, one of my big life goals was to have a family and to have kids. And so I didn't know what that, and I had been hurt. And so it was kind of a good time for us, too, where I was just I don't know, I'm struggling with the running. I'm ready to try, I really want to pursue this in my life at this time. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to come back and compete again. I didn't know what that would look like, but I was I'm ready for this next step. So we moved out here and out to Arizona when I was pregnant and to be closer to my family. But it was after I had my son, we knew we wanted to have 2 kids. So I wanted to qualify for the Olympic trials and the marathon. I hadn't run a marathon yet. I still have yet to run a marathon actually. And, so I qualified in a half marathon. And then right after I ran the Rock and Roll San Diego. So I ran some races. It took me a while. I really didn't feel amazing until I didn't really feel like myself. And even when I ran the half marathon, quite like myself before, until around 9 months to a year after he was born. And I breastfed till about 7 months. And even that, I just felt you're just tired a lot. And I had some other stress going on in my life. My dad had passed away and I was running their business and things. So I had a lot of life stressors at that time too. So I stopped. So I didn't know how much of mothering thing or the life stressors, but it was a combination of things that just took me a while. And so I qualified for that. And then we wanted to have another baby. We wanted to have our kids close together. So I qualified for that. And then a month later, we got pregnant with my daughter. And so I found out after that didn't qualify me for the trials. It was a point to point course and it had it wasn't a legal course for the race. So then I was all right, I'm gonna have to get in shape really quickly after, because I had my daughter in April of 2015 and the trials were 2016, I think March of 2016. So 11 months after my daughter. So I did it through the half again, but I missed the qualification time by 7 seconds in the half. And I didn't realize I was that far off. But then I ended up using that fitness and ran my 10K that spring on the track. And I took the job coaching 4 months after my daughter was born. But it was great because I trained all my easy days with the team.
That's awesome.
And then did workouts, and it kind of got renewed my like joy for running again, like being with the college kids. And
the excitement.
I really enjoyed it. So I think around 7 months again after I ran the half marathon and just missed qualifying. And then it was right around a year again where I really like, that's when I hit that 10K qualifier. And I've experienced, like you said, like I was running workouts where I felt so much stronger than I did before, like longer intervals and tempos and things like that, where I couldn't push like that, like I had in the past. And so I think there is a mom strength to it, but I was really, And I think I was just like, you also like prioritize things differently. And so like, I didn't stress over little things as much as I used to. I would just get it in, I'd get the training in, like just take it for the long-term approach rather than the short term. And so I think that mentality helped me a lot in being successful and kind of shifted things for me. And then, I decided I'd try to do another marathon right after that. And it was just really hard to juggle the kids.
You were doing a lot.
Working.
You're working full time, 2 young kids. Yeah.
So I kind of pursued, I think like, I honestly think now watching like my good friend Sarah Hall and some of these other, like Edna Kiplagat, like a lot of these women that are running late into their late 30s and even 40s, that you can continue to have like long-term success in the sport. And you kind of get better with you get stronger as you get older. So I think the main thing that we're seeing, like we just didn't see that before because we didn't have the support. I think a lot of women didn't have the support that they do now to be able to continue that long term. So it'll be interesting the next few years to see how that shifts and how many more women continue to like pursue the sport long term.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And I think I was thinking about this just this week that I need to do a little more research, but I want to do like a whole podcast episode maybe in another few years. I need to finish my journey, but like about the physiological changes, but also the lifestyle changes of becoming a mother and how actually there's this mom strength, like you said, that I'm like, how come I feel like I'm running faster right now? This doesn't make any sense, but it's possible. And gosh, Sarah, there's so much that we can talk about, and this has been awesome so far, but I kind of want to shift because you mentioned like, focusing on longevity and the support for women. And I think that ties into probably some of your motivation for the book that you co-authored with Molly Huddle. And I really want to highlight the book right now. So it's called How She Did It. It is a high performance guide for female distance runners with stories of women who have made it. The ultimate roadmap for female distance runners from 2-time Olympian Molly Huddle and 2-time NCAA champion yourself, Sarah Slattery. And you feature 50 candid interviews with women who have made it to the highest levels in distance running. And just to name a few, you've got Dina Castor, Emma Coburn, Joan Benoit Samuelson, like just amazing athletes and women that you've interviewed. And this book just came out last year, correct?
Yeah, in March of this year.
Still this year, technically.
Yeah.
March of 2022.
Yeah, like a few more days.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear just, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but for you and Molly to come together, what was kind of the motivation of like, let's write this book?
I think for us, it was a book that we both wish we would have had when we were younger. I think growing up in the sport, like I was always looking for things to help me train and race, like help my performance. So there wasn't a lot of information on how to train women or what the women at the top were doing. I would just look at them and see them like as machines, like on the starting line. And I was like, do they struggle like I do? Like, are they, or do they just have this straight line of trajectory where like they don't have bad days, like go through any of these things? So like, I always wanted to know more and like how they got there. And we were just you could look at, like, I'd read Runner's World articles as they came out or like search for things, but they didn't have podcasts. They didn't have a lot of books it was mostly tailored to men. And so some of that was great, but like some of it didn't like didn't quite like line up for the things that I was looking for. Like, why is anyone else not having their period? Why am I getting these injuries? Like body image things, mental health things, like all those things, like would have been great to have at that time. So Molly and I were like, and then we were hearing that like one of the main concerns when I was going into college was I would see a lot of these top level, like high performing women like myself, like in high school, going to college and never perform to that same level or get out of the sport. And I didn't understand what are they facing? Like why, like, I don't want that. Main thing is I didn't want that to be me. Like I didn't want to be that stat, and I wanted to continue to get better, and I wanted to continue to improve in the sport and get the most out of myself. And I wanted to find a program that would like in college that would support me and continue to like help me grow as an athlete and have the opportunity to be a professional if I wanted to be a professional. So yeah, I was really happy. Like I was very lucky at Colorado. I did have that support. I had that and I felt that from Mark right away. He cared about me as an athlete, but he cared just as much about me as a person. And yeah, so I was, and he had coached several other athletes that continued in the sport and continued to get better. And that was really important to me to find that. And like Molly and I, Molly went to a great college, but also like post collegiately was in a training group where she was supported by so many, like I had a great coach, but supported by so many women that made great choices. And she learned like all these lessons from these women and kind of how to navigate these things through her career. And so we felt like there were so many women that didn't have the experiences of these girls that like, and there had been some pretty big names in the news in the last like couple of years where girls like were not guided well, like through their careers. And both Molly and I were like, this isn't always the case. And like, we know a lot of women that have had they've had bumps in the road, but been able to navigate it and come out the other side and have long, healthy, successful careers. And so we wanted to highlight those things, but we felt like it was really important to give them the tools at the beginning with some of the experts and the advice we tried to like find the main pillars that were key to like having success in our career. So like the nutrition, mental health, injury prevention, sports psychology. Even we had a sociologist like on the societal pressures and things like that, but things that you face and like in your journey as an athlete. But like, we felt like you could hear that all day long. I could have been told that. And I was told that by like nutritionists or coaches or people all day long, but I wasn't going to listen to it unless I saw it play out well in someone else. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we felt like the stories of these women were really important because and we needed enough of them so that girls could connect with at least one. So we did over 80 interviews of women because we really wanted to have a diverse range of events in distance running, but also backgrounds and ethnicity, like countries. And so that like different things that they're like girls could connect with someone and feel like they could understand what they're facing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so much to be said for, I think one of the points of the book is the girls and women who made it. What did it take for them to make it? Because it's awesome to have professionals give you advice or your parents give you advice or whoever, but it's like, but what did she do? That's what everybody wants to know. Like, but she's she's the champion. She's the Olympian. She's the one who made it. Like, what did she do? And I think that's so important to share the stories. Gosh, I'm like, have a business idea for you, Sarah. I'm like, this is great for the distance running community, but this needs to be done in like all sports.
I know. We've talked about like different like avenues of taking this in the future too.
Yeah, for sure. So it's been less than a year of the book being out. And I believe you and Molly went on a book tour and everything. And, the book, you can purchase it online. I'll include links in the show notes. But how has it been received, or the experience for you of going around and getting the book out there? And yeah, what's the impact it's had on your life as you are impacting other people who are reading it?
I think it's been really great for us. I think our biggest goal in writing this book was not, obviously you want it to sell well, but we just want it to be impactful to the future athlete and the parents and the coaches that are working with them. So we want this to be a tool for them, and we want it to be something that can help them have long careers and healthy careers. So I think one of the Foot Locker, we talk about the Foot Locker curse in there, and Foot Locker championships being one of the main reasons we wrote the book. And we're actually going to speak at Foot Locker next week, which is really cool. And we're giving a book to every participant, male and female, that have made the team. So that's really cool, and having that connection with them. And I think the most important thing, and I think you probably as a nutritionist see this too, is creating those healthy habits early on in your career. And understanding those things and having the support from coaches and parents in that journey. So that's our goal, is really to get that in the hands of young athletes and their coaches and parents, so that they all know they have these tools to create successful environments for their children, and the athletes have these tools to have long-term success. And a lot of these athletes, which is great, these stories and things these women are very accessible now with social media and all these other things, so they can follow their journey. And there's many more people we could include on this list. We had to cut 30 people out of here, but this I'm sure that was hard. they could, I don't know. Hopefully these girls, the next generation, can take this advice and see this play out in other women in the future. And so I think that's, for me, the biggest success is helping others in the future. And that was our main goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can't say enough good things about recommending this book. And I think, you mentioned too, kind of a goal is focusing on longevity of it's great to fight for, girls in high school to find success, but wouldn't it be great if they also found success moving forward?
Yeah. And success doesn't necessarily just mean winning a national championship or I don't know, being at the peak of the distance running hierarchy, but it's being healthy long-term throughout your life, and being able to pursue these things and have healthy bodies and minds for the future. So that's our goal. And if you are able to do that, you can probably perform at your highest level, whatever that is. So yeah, it's just finding that within yourself and taking care of your body. And your body is the most important vessel to pursue anything in your life. So taking care of it is key.
Absolutely. I have a few more questions for you before we wrap up. That'll be quick because I know we're approaching the hour here.
Okay.
Sarah, if there's one food you could eat every single day for the rest of your life and never get sick of it, what would it be?
Steak.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I was always iron deficient, but I just love.
That's awesome. What is your favorite sport to participate in?
Still running. I love running. I've been swimming more with my kids now that they're involved in swimming, but it's still running is just so awesome because you can do it anywhere. You just need a pair of shoes and you can go see the coolest places. Traveling, I love it because you can go see things that you wouldn't normally see. So I don't know. And I love being outside. I'm not a gym rat. I do like to lift, but I would much rather be outdoors.
Be outdoors. Yeah. Amazing. How about as a spectator? Is it still running or is it a different sport that is your favorite to be, a fan?
Anything that my kids are doing. My son plays baseball, football, basketball. My daughter does soccer and basketball, and anything that they're doing, I love being at. But my husband and I are huge CU football fans, even though they haven't been great the last few years, but there's rumor on the street that Deion Sanders might be hired as the new coach. So there's hope. we're still diehard BU fans, and we love football.
That's awesome. And then last question, it's going to be a hard one because I know you've interviewed, 80 amazing female athletes, but if you could narrow it down and give a shout out to one female athlete that you think is really inspiring or is maybe a role model for any reason whatsoever, who would that be and why?
I think it's hard. There's so many great stories. I think always one of my favorites is, she's a really good friend of mine, and we've been friends since I was a sophomore in high school, is Sarah Hall. She's just an amazing human. Outside of her accomplishments as a runner, she's just one of the most genuine and thoughtful people I know. And it's not fake. It's real. She really cares about people and what she does. And she has she doesn't have, if you're with her, she's really just cares so much. And so just seeing her, I was able to coach her daughter in college, and her oldest daughter that she adopted 4 daughters, and just the things that she's done outside of the sport, but is also the American record holder. She was the American record holder for a half marathon and had this long career and struggled and succeeded at the highest level, but also struggled for many years too. And just her joy in what she does and what she wants in life, you can see it play out. So I just think she's a huge inspiration.
Yeah. She was a wonderful person to pick if you had to narrow it down and then just pick one. But, and thank you yourself for, I think, being a role model for other female athletes and all that you've done in this sport and beyond, and the book that you and Molly wrote together to get this message out to other female athletes. Thank you so much for meeting with me today and chatting to our listeners.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, and good luck with everything in the future, and congrats on baby number 2. That's so exciting.
Thank you. Thanks. Fans, thank you so much for listening. But before you go, I don't want you to miss out on things that I know you need. First, if you need help overcoming nutrition concerns, perhaps something we talked about in this episode, look no further. You have your female athlete specialist in sports dietetics right here. So head to my website, www.riseupnutritionrun.com, and book a free call with me to learn more about how I may be able to help you. My flagship program, the Female Athlete System of Transformation, aka the Fast Track, helps female athletes overcome disordered eating and perform at their highest level. The life-changing transformations that we help clients with don't just happen by listening to podcasts. It happens by taking action with people who are guiding you to your goals, aka me. So call me, head to the website, www.riseupnutritionrun.com, and book it in. Take action, overcome your nutrition struggles as fast as possible. I am here to help. Second, don't forget about our amazing sponsors, InsideTracker, insidetracker.com/riseup for 20% off. Also, we are supported by Orgain. If you are an athlete in need of a quick fueling option with clean, good ingredients, look no further than Orgain. I absolutely love their ready-to-drink whey-based shakes for post-workout on the go. As a listener of this podcast, enjoy 30% off your first order with the code RISEUP30. All caps, RISEUP30. Last, if you are a dietitian, coach, or health professional needing a platform to manage your business, coordinate with your clients, invoice, communicate, and more, look no further than Practice Better. Get a 14-day free trial and 20% off your first 4 months by clicking the link in the show notes and using the code RISEUP20. I've been using Practice Better for 4 years now to manage my business, and I promise it's the best way to manage your practice. Look, lady, since you are doing all of those things for you, my last request, if you're willing, is to do something for me. Please head over to our ratings and reviews, leave a 5-star rating, leave a positive review if you like this podcast, and please tell a friend about this amazing podcast or an episode that you think they need so that you and others around you can be fierce, fit, and fueled. Until next time, fuel fiercely.